everyone. We're counselors from Counseling and Psychological Services, and we're here today and hoping to share some resources for international students, especially if you are in different situations. There may be a lot of confusion, so hopefully this will clarify things if you want to find a therapist or find some mental health resources during COVID. So my name is Edu. I'm a licensed psychologist at CAPS, and I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves.
My name is Alyssa Kurth. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also the referral case manager.
My name is Chian Wan. I'm a staff psychologist. So I will start with a question to Alyssa. So if I'm an international student who are in California, how do I find a counselor?
So depending on whether or not you have SHIP, the important thing to know is that you can see a therapist anywhere in California, as long as they're licensed here in California. And I'm going to share my screen to show some of the resources we do have on the CAPS website. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So this website is the University Health Services website. It's just uhs.berkeley.edu. You're going to click on the counseling tab up top and go to CAPS. Once there, here on the left-hand side, you can see the off-campus referrals link. You're going to click here. So this actually has a lot of the information that we're answering today. For students with SHIP, you have two options. Option one is connecting with a provider, here in California. You could utilize our referral database, which I'll show you in a minute, but another option is utilizing Teladoc. So Teladoc is specifically for SHIP students, and this applies, again, if you're in California, but also outside of California. And Teladoc is an online platform that you register for with your SHIP information. You'll answer some questions about what you're going through, what you're looking for, and the platform populates a list of providers based on your answers. And then you'll be able to look at all the provider profiles, pick a provider, and then suggest an appointment time to that provider. And then that provider will get back to you within about 48 to 72 hours. I will say the feedback from students has been that Teladoc is the fastest way to get connected with a therapist. Most students have been able to connect with a therapist within about a week. And the copay for Teladoc is the same as a copay if you saw somebody in person in California, which is $15. So if you're looking here on our off-campus referral page and you scroll down, this pink tab right here is the referral database. So once you click on it, there we go. You'll be able to, depending on what you're looking for, click to look for a therapist, a psychiatrist, if you're looking for testing, or low-cost counseling. So I'm going to click on therapist. What's important to know about this is that you do need a CalNet ID to sign in. So your parents, for example, wouldn't be able to sign in, or friends or anything like that. Only folks that have a CalNet ID can sign in. And then once you're in, so the important things to know about this database is that the therapists on here, for the most part, are all within a 5-mile radius of campus. Pretty much all of them are doing telehealth and likely will be doing telehealth for the rest of the school year. So as long as you're in California, any of these folks could be a good fit. I think one thing that makes this database different than if you were looking on Teladoc, for example, or even Psychology Today, which is a popular website to look for therapists, one thing that makes this database different is that one, I myself have gone through every single person on here to actually make sure that they're licensed and to make sure that there are no complaints filed against them on any of their boards. And we can't say the same for services like Teladoc or Psychology Today or anything like that. So that's one thing that makes it different. The other thing that makes it different is that the folks on here, for the pretty much all of them at this point, are used to working with Cal students. So they have that area of expertise that other providers might not have in terms of understanding the culture at Berkeley and understanding the challenges that specifically UC Berkeley students face. So this is good for either students with SHIP or without SHIP, because you can see, I'm going to click on the first, actually I'm going to click on this third person. You can see that there's different therapists who take different insurance plans. So we have most of the major insurance plans listed on here. So if you have Anthem Blue Cross, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Optum, anything like that, most of them are listed here. And then of course, a lot of the providers here take SHIP.
Okay. Great. So what if a student has what if a student is in California but has a insurance that's not SHIP and not listed here? What would you recommend?
That's a great question. So actually for any student who has any insurance that's not SHIP, wherever you are, the first thing I would actually recommend is calling your insurance plan directly for a number of different reasons. One, some insurance plans require that you are authorized. You obtain authorization before you seek mental health services. So one, you're going to want to call them to find out that information. Two, you're going to want to find out what your copay is. So that's really important. Three is that most major insurance plans have multiple, dozens and dozens of plans underneath that umbrella. So for example, if you have Anthem Blue Cross is just the general company. Anthem Blue Cross has dozens of plans underneath it. And so it's important for you as a client to know what is your actual plan? What are your benefits? Because, for example, one person with Anthem Blue Cross might have access to indefinite amounts of visits with a therapist. Somebody else might only have 24 visits. So it's important to find out that information. And the other thing is, depending on your plan, if a therapist in the community says they take Anthem Blue Cross, that might mean they only take specific plans of Anthem Blue Cross. So your insurance would be a great source of getting referrals. You can give them your zip code, and they'll be able to tell you, okay, in your zip code, here are 50 providers who take your specific plan. So that would be really helpful to know. The other thing is, given the pandemic, pretty much all major insurance plans at this point have an online platform that they've contracted with, similar to how we have Teladoc. And so you're going to want to know that information too, so that you can easily access care no matter where you are in the US. Because with most online platforms, they will populate therapists based on the zip code you put in. So if you're in California, they'll give you California therapists. If you're somewhere else, they'll give you therapists in that place. But always step one is always call your insurance plan. The other option is utilizing something, once you've called your insurance plan, another resource is utilizing Psychology Today. Psychology Today is a search engine for therapists all over the US. And that can be a great way to find providers, especially if you have a plan that's that's kind of rare, then Psychology Today can be a great way to find somebody in your area.
And Lisa, I want to go back a little bit. If I have a SHIP, do I need authorization?
Great question. So for this year, SHIP has waived the need for a referral or authorization to utilize services outside of the Tang Center. And it's a great question because normally you would need authorization, but for this year you don't. Anybody who has SHIP, if you check your secure messages in your eTang portal, you will actually see that you have a letter in your eTang portal from SHIP that explains this information. It also links to a PDF that you could print out. If you were working with a provider who asked for a referral, you could show them that SHIP has waived it. However, this is important to know that August 1st of next year, if you plan on continuing with the same provider you're currently seeing or you plan on seeing, you will need to contact SHIP at that point to get a referral for the next school year. So the SHIP plan always runs August 1st to July 31st.
Then how about international students who are not in US?
Good question. So if we go back to the just UHS website, if you have SHIP, if you go to the SHIP tab on the top of the page and click SHIP FAQs, and you're going to scroll down. One of these questions here is, if I'm outside of Bay Area, how do I obtain medical care? There's a specific link for those that are outside of the US. So I'm going to click on this guide. So if you are outside of the US, you're going to want to call Travel Guard. So Travel Guard is something that SHIP has contracted with that are supporting students specifically with SHIP in figuring out what their resources are in the country they're in. If you have SHIP and you are in outside the US, you can actually see anybody in the country you're in. What's important to know though is that you will be responsible for paying the full cost of your visit at your visit, and then you'll submit a claim to SHIP to be reimbursed. However, you'll be actually reimbursed the full cost. So you don't even have a copay of $15. You will be reimbursed that full cost of your visit. So Travel Guard, again, is an assistance to help you figure out what your resources are abroad.
And this is for students with SHIP.
Correct.
What if they don't have SHIP and they're currently out of the country?
That's a good question. So if they're out of the US, you're going to want to contact your insurance company. And I'm going to be very transparent. It's possible if you have an American insurance company that they're not going to cover you. And so it might mean having to just pay out of pocket and not being reimbursed, period. So some things, and this is whether you have SHIP or not, or don't have SHIP, some things to consider if you're abroad are, one, we just want to acknowledge that we know not every country in the world has mental health resources to begin with. And so it might mean having to connect with local community resources, faith-based resources, just to get some kind of support. But we want to acknowledge that it might not be a therapist. If you're looking for medication, it might mean going to your nearest hospital to see what resources they have. And it might not be a psychiatrist you're meeting with, like you would here in the US. It might mean a primary care doctor. The other thing we want to acknowledge is that beyond not just having therapy services in some countries don't have the same medications we have in the US. Some countries, certain medications we have in the US are illegal there. And so it is something that you're going to have to do, unfortunately, a little bit of research on, depending on where you are. And again, we just want to acknowledge that you might not be able to access things the way you would here. A great resource to look at, depending on the country you're in, is if the country you're in has a large expat population, looking up blog posts or websites dedicated specifically to expats, because they often have resources in English on mental health. So I'm going to use the example of Thailand. Thailand has a huge expat population, and there are several websites dedicated specifically to expats. And I've seen on a lot of them, beyond resources for housing and stuff like that, that there are actually mental health resources, and a lot of the mental health resources on there are for folks who speak English. And I bring this up because we do have students who are wanting to meet with an English speaking provider, or specifically an American provider who understands what their life in the US has been. And so that's one avenue for trying to find help.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like students will really have to be creative if they're out there and don't have easy access.
Exactly. And the other thing is, some countries don't have laws regarding mental health. And I bring it up because, so here, I didn't mention this earlier, but here in California, therapists in California can only see clients who are physically here in the state of California. So it doesn't matter if you're currently back home in Japan, but your address on record is California. If you're not physically here in California, we can't see you. And so that's part of why we're doing this video. But some countries don't have rules like that. So for example, some of the European countries have more flexible rules, so that if, for example, maybe if you're in the Netherlands, you could see a therapist who's in Belgium. So you're going to have to also check the rules in the country you're in.
Gotcha.
Speaking of creativity, what are the resources do you recommend to international students if they do not have any access to local mental health resources? This might be, yeah.
Yeah, I can answer this one, and I'm going to share my screen time. So. And just like Elisa said, because we're not able to, as CAPS counselors, we're licensed in the state of California. So we're not able to provide services to students if they're not physically in California. Unfortunately, that applies to international students who are currently back home in another country. So, but it doesn't mean there's no other resources. If you want to take advantage of some, self-help. resources. So I'm going to share one of the resources we're trying to promote is TAO. It's therapy assistance online. And here we have a web page introducing this whole service. It's a free service to students for UC Berkeley students. And it's an online library with a lot of different programs that help you to learn managing stress, managing anxiety and depression, and a lot of really helpful mindfulness videos and information. So really encourage you to check it out. I believe you have access by just going into the website with your account ID. And we have a login instructions listed here at the bottom of the page. So feel free to check it out. Even if you have a therapist, I think it's a really good place to find some self-help information. And the best part is it's free. And another thing that we want to talk about is some mental health workshops and events. So at CAPS, we provide one-time workshops and outreach programs to to different communities. And this year, because of the limitation of licensure, we can't provide counseling to international students. We're going to try our best to kind of promote more programs for international students and one-time workshops. So come check out these services and the programs we have, and join us if you're interested in the topic. Like currently we have a couple, like Alisa is providing this one-time workshop on support connecting to an off-campus mental health provider until the end of November or early December. So you can sign up and learn more about the process if you want to talk to Alisa directly. And we also have some other topics like anxiety, managing academic stress, some healing circles, especially with the upcoming election. So feel free to check out this webpage. Again, we'll list it in our introduction to the video, so you have easy access to all the links we talked about here. Okay.
Thank you, Yi. My last question is, who should I contact if I need help or guidance with referral process? I think some of you already mentioned, I mean, it's been already mentioned, but if you can recaps, what are the ways that I can get some help regardless of situation?
So regardless of your situation, you could join one of the workshops. Again, I'll be doing them. They're on Tuesdays in the afternoon California time, which I know doesn't work for everyone depending on where you are in the world. So another option would just be contacting CAPS. And our CAPS admin staff will connect you with the right person, likely me, depending on the situation. And if you don't have a CAPS clinician that you had recently been in contact with, but you can always reach out to us. I would also recommend, if you are a student with SHIP, to make sure you also reach out to SHIP so that if you have questions specifically about getting reimbursed, if you are outside of the country. One thing I realized I forgot to mention is that if you're an international student with SHIP, but you're in the US, but outside of California, Teladoc is probably still the easiest way to get connected, but another option would be looking for a provider through Cigna. Cigna is what your insurance is if you're outside of California. So if you're in California, it's SHIP, which is under Blue Shield. If you're outside of California, but in the US, it's under Cigna. And if you go to SHIP's website, you'll see that they have a find a provider tool for Cigna. And so that's another option to explore. But your copay is still just $15.
Great. We include all the links in our introduction. So we include also that Cigna Find a Provider tool. All right, this is really helpful and informative. I have to admit, part of me feels overwhelmed with all these different directions. So I highly recommend if you as a student want some guidance, reach out to us. Even though we're not able to provide ongoing counseling, we can provide a one-time consultation. So yeah, thank you.
I really want to echo what Yi just said, that if you are feeling overwhelmed, that's normal. Yeah, exactly what she said. You know, we do that. I do this every single day of the week, and I get overwhelmed by this information and by the lack of resources. And so we just really want to acknowledge that that is really, really normal. And that it absolutely can be challenging to get connected if wherever you are, even if you are in California, it still can be a challenge to get connected. And so we want to acknowledge that. That's very true.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.